Changing the setup is always the easiest and the fastest solution to try and work with the car. But also you have to, as a driver, adapt to everything because the track is changing. You never find the perfect setup, so you always got to adapt.
We tend to start a race weekend with a off-the-truck setup and see how that performs. So we start driving the way that we drive and try and change the setup to suit what we want from the car.
And usually when you make a setup change, there's always a give and take. It's never, you can't just keep making changes where everything just gets better and better. It just doesn't work, unfortunately. So as a driver, you can kind of influence what the car does with your brake pedals, with your driving style, etc. So it's always a combination of, if you find a change that does improve one problem, but maybe creates a slight other problem, you can then adapt your driving style.
So if you have a car that's quite nervous, that feels quite loose, calming down your driving, pulling back on the entries can help that. Vice versa, if you have a car that is struggling to turn, being more aggressive on the entry and loading up the front can help. But if the issue is a big one, then you will need to address it with setup.
You're trying to nail your setup on testing, and when you arrive here at race weekends, you're really just trying to make very minimal changes. If you end up chasing setup too much, you can, very, very quickly chase yourself down a rabbit hole. So yes, you're always looking to make minimal changes based on condition, but if you're starting to change on a race weekend, springs and bars and major elements of that, then there's a potential you're going to be getting lost.
Obviously, you want your vehicle to be as fast as you can, but a lot of that speed occasionally comes from the driver being comfortable. So if you're out there and you feel like the rear of the car is sliding, and sliding also overheats the tyres and creates more tyre deg, just go with your gut feeling. If it doesn't feel right, say something. And a lot of the engineers in the sport are very clever and tell you or help you get it tuned into your liking.
I prefer to find a solution in the setup to get around an issue, but if it doesn't work in the first place, we don't have much track time, so you got to find it in yourself.
When you have limited track time, it's very important that when you do your laps, you're very quick to react and say, the car isn't the way that I like it, and that gives your engineer a chance to make a change quickly. If you just keep doing laps, pounding around with something that isn't working, and not changing either your style or setup, that's not a good solution.
You put a lot of faith in your engineers, the seniority of your team, the choice of team that you have, the experience that they have, that they are going to give you a car that is in the window. And even if the car is a little bit off, there are different ways you can drive a car in order to overcome a shortcoming. If you have an understeery car, you would drive it differently to an oversteery car, for example. So learning those different principles and learning how to adapt your driving style to the car that you have in those junior categories is often a very important discipline to get on top of, because I've probably done a couple hundred races in my career now, and I would say I've had a perfect car maybe 10, 11 times. So you're always driving around a problem, and it's good to get used to that from the early days.
If you're at a new track, which you don't know very well as a driver, then you're probably better off staying out there, running more laps, getting yourself dialed in, because you're going to get a lot more out of discovering the track and optimizing the track than you would be by making a setup change. But if it's a track that you've ran on a lot and got a lot of experience with, then yeah, sure, you can dive into the car setup and make changes and lose some track time, because your brake references, where you need to be on the track, your racing line, apexes, etc.
So the data is used in conjunction with driver feedback to see what it is that we can change. Like, engineers hate it when we tell them what we think needs changed, right? They can see in the data steering traces if you've got understeer, if you've got oversteer, what causes that, whether it's coming from like the diff or mechanical or if it's aero. And so they can fine-tune what we're telling them with getting the information backed up by the data.
That's always a little bit of a collaboration between you as a driver and as an engineer. You always need to be cognizant as a driver that you are definitely driving in the correct manner and getting the best out of the car and what it needs. The first thing you need to analyze as a driver is yourself when you get out of the car. Did I do all the right things there? Did I maximize the car that I had? And then pick out of that self-analysis the parts of the car that you need improved in order to help you go forward as well.
Sometimes you can look at the throttle and brake traces aligned with your steering trace, and occasionally you'll see big snaps of oversteer or big snaps of understeer, and if they're coming because you're doing something a little bit too aggressive with your feet and the pedals, that's normally a giveaway sign that you're doing something wrong as a driver. Where if you then look at that on the flip side of that and look at the data and you're having a big correction while you're not really doing anything too abnormal with your feet, your brake pressure looks okay against your teammates, then that's when you should be looking to try and make a setup change.
The better you can get the car, the less work you have to do behind the wheel, and also the more consistent you're going to be. So If you're making mistakes, you're losing lap time. Can you do the same lap time in a car that's maybe not perfectly set up? Absolutely, but are you going to be able to do that for 2.5 hours straight? Probably not. So I'm a big believer of driving to what you have, and if it's not quite right, continually trying to inch away at it and build that up.